What's up YouTube? Welcome to the channel. Today's video we're going to be working on a 2006 Nissan Xterra and we're going to be replacing brake pads and rotors. Alright, so here we are ready to do this brake job. Before we actually do anything here, make sure that you have your e-brake off. On these Xterras there's a shoe and drum kind of set up here within the actual rotors, so you want to make sure that that e-brake is off. Otherwise you're not going to be able to get the rotor off. Then from there, I don't know if it's going to be necessary for this car, but I'm going to go ahead and, as a preventative measure, just spray this down with a little bit of WD-40. That way the rotor is a lot easier to come off when that time comes. Alright, so to remove the caliper, the first thing we want to do is we want to take off these two bolts, this guy here, and there's one down here. This is so that we can actually take off the caliper from the caliper bracket. We'll set it aside over here on the actual leaf spring of the truck. That way we don't bind or damage this brake line over here. Alright, so to remove these bolts, we're going to use a 14mm socket and wrench. These things shouldn't be on too tight, and then when you go to put them back on, you also shouldn't over tighten these guys. I don't know if you guys can see that this bottom one, the pin is actually spinning on me, so as the more and more I turn, I'm actually not doing anything. I'm going to use these needle nose pliers to kind of hold this pin in place so we can remove that bottom bolt. Here's one bolt. Here's the other bolt. Alright, so now we want to take this caliper actually off. We're going to set this guy right here, being super careful not to ding or pinch this brake hose. Then what we want to do is we want to take off one of the old brake pads. Alright, so the next step that we want to do here is we want to push in this brake piston. In order to do that, we want to take the old brake pad, set it up in there. We're going to take this C-clamp and we are just going to slowly turn this until that brake piston is compressed all the way back in. Alright, that's what it should look like, pretty flush. Alright, so up next we have the caliper bolts. There's one up here and then there's going to be another one down here. These are both 19mm, I believe. Yep, 19mm. So let me get to that. Alright guys, so here we have the caliper bracket. As you can see, I still have one of these pads in here as well as the clips. Go ahead and take those off. And then before we actually move forward with this, I'm going to pull these guys off. Make sure there's enough grease on there. In my case there is. So there's no need to add more. Alright, up next we got to take off this rotor. Hopefully this thing will come off easily, but it looks like it wants to be difficult, so I'm gonna get a mallet real quick and meet you guys right back. Alright you guys, so here we have the brake rotor removed. Here you want to go ahead and clean this up with some brake clean and maybe like a wire brush or something, just to kind of help prevent it from the rotor from sticking. Okay, so here we have the two rotors side by side. We have this new one over here on the left, we have the old one right here on the right, and all you want to do is you want to compare the two, make sure that they're roughly about the same size in both thickness and diameter. In this case they are, so we're good to go ahead and install. Here we are ready to install the new rotor. I got this from my local auto parts store, and it has this special protective coating on it, both on the inside and on the outside. It's pretty nice because it'll help to prevent the rotor from sticking to the hub like we had with the original one. So if you have a standard rotor which doesn't have the protective coating like this one here, before you go ahead to actually install it, make sure you wipe down the mating surfaces of the brake pad and the rotor, both on the inside and on the outside. There's usually some kind of special coating on there that kind of helps prevent it from rusting while it's stored at the auto parts store. And then once you have that done, you can go ahead and install it. I did get some minor smudges here and there, so I'm wiping those off, but otherwise we're good to go ahead and reassemble the brakes. Alright, so we're ready to go ahead and reassemble the brakes. Doing so is actually super simple. It's just the reversal of the removal. Go ahead and add some lug nuts to your brake rotor. This is just going to help to keep it in place while we install the caliper bracket and the pads. Alright, here is our bracket. Let's go ahead and slide it into place very carefully so that we don't scuff anything up. Let's start. Alright, so once you have your caliper bracket bolted back on, you want to make sure that these bolts are torqued to the proper specs. I looked online and I found a couple different results, but ultimately I found one that was saying it's around 76 foot-pounds. So here I have my torque wrench, just torquing it down to 76 foot-pounds. Alright you guys, so up next we gotta install these brake shims. These came with the kit that I bought and should fit into place nicely. There's the bottom, and here's the top. So up next we can install the brake pads, but before we do that I like to add a little bit of this brake grease in here where the pads are actually going to be sliding in and out, which just kind of helps to quiet things down. You don't want a lot because you don't want it to get on the rotor or the brake pads themselves, but just a little bit. If it's easier for you, you could probably do this before you install it onto the actual caliper bracket. Last but not least, the actual brake pads themselves. I kind of like to set them in there. Okay, and now we can go ahead and reinstall this brake caliper. Careful not to damage that brake line. If you need to, feel free to push in these pins so that way the ears of the calipers actually go on there. Take our nice screws. Now for these ones, I'm just going to tighten them up so that they're hand tight. These don't need to be on super tight, otherwise you risk breaking them. For this bottom one, it's spinning again even though it's not really tight. I'm going to use these needle nose pliers. And again, just hand tight. That's it. We can go ahead and put our wheel back on. So it's been a couple weeks since I replaced these brake pads and rotors, and there's just a couple things that I wanted to go over that I missed in the video. First thing is there's a rubber grommet that you need to transfer from the old rotor to the new rotor, and this is just for that hole where you can adjust your e-brake. Specific to these rotors, the brake pad, the coating comes off with the brake pad, and that's true for the regular brakes and as well as the e-brake. The one for the e-brake, you actually probably should manually clean, and by manually clean I mean just kind of drive down the road maybe 20 miles an hour, hit the e-brake, let that kind of stuff clean itself out. Maybe do that a couple times, and that's just because the inside also had that coating in there. But that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe, and have a great day.